Hey, welcome to Man Talk, the podcast promoting biblical masculinity. Today, we are going to preview this brand new show by seeking to answer this question: where are the warriors? Hey, thanks for joining us on Man Talk today. We are here in the studio. I'm Stephen Vaughan, your co-host and on-screen producer, and I'm joined by my father, our featured host, Harold Vaughan. Do you want to say hello to everybody and greet them?
Yes, hello, and thanks for joining in.
Alrighty. Well, today we really want to focus in and seek to answer this question: where are the warriors, and what is happening to biblical masculinity? And I think if we were to just be honest and look around us, there seems to be a demise of biblical masculinity in our world. There seems to be an attack on rising up and being a biblical man. There is a war, essentially, on the warriors. So I think I want to ask you a question and get your perspective on this today, and so we can understand this a little bit better. How do we see this war, quote unquote, on the warriors playing out around us?
Well, I think several ways coming at us from many directions. First of all, there's a demeaning of men, a demeaning of men. In other words, a downplaying of the importance of men in family, society, culture, and the church. And this entails a softening of the roles of fathers and husbands. Men are husbands and fathers, but the idea is they're unessential. They're really not that important. They're a bunch of irrelevant losers. And you see this on some of the television programming over the last several decades. You got Homer Simpson and Al Bundy, a couple of Caucasian deadbeats who just lay around and are basically worthless. So there's this demeaning of men. Second, Stephen, I would say a demoralizing of men. A demoralizing of men. In other words, discouraging them from really being masculine, to be hesitant about taking action and decisive, robbing them of ambition, initiative, and drive. So basically, men are like a bunch of damp washcloths, just passive wimps. It's, in essence, the neutering of men, to where, like in Daniel's day, men become a bunch of just weak eunuchs, so to speak. But there's another extreme to this demoralizing of men, not only characterizing them as basically ineffective and irrelevant, but also characterizing men as just being glandular beings, as it were. In other words, reducing them to a bunch of sex-obsessed animals to where they only live for one thing. So I think there's a demoralizing that has taken place in our culture and in our world, a demeaning of men, a demoralizing of men, and then third, a demonizing of men, basing that on stereotypes and behaviors of ungodly, angry, and perverted men. And the idea being here is that all men are evil because some men are evil. Because some men act like jerks, therefore all men must act like jerks. And the whole idea of masculinity is being rejected categorically and universally because of this, a demonizing of men.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And so I think that one thing that I would kind of wonder is for the person out there that's listening to this and they're just like, oh, well, you're just a bunch of guys who are talking about this because you're guys. I think it's more important than that, and we need to understand this. This is not just a bunch of guys talking about how men are being rejected. This ultimately is an attack against God's design.
Precisely.
Because God designed both men and women to be unique, to have their different uniqueness, roles, giftings, same value, but he created them differently. Why? So that together they could perfectly display his image to all around us. Now, we know sin marred that and all that, but ultimately God designed men and women. He gave them the unique characteristics that each of us have, and we need to be aware of this, that when we see these things around us, it's not just something that is a cultural issue or a political issue. This is an attack against God's design. And so in our first season of Man Talk, we will seek to answer what is God's design by looking at the masculine mandate found in the scriptures, God's masculine mandate to men. What does that look like? And that's going to be season 1 of Man Talk. Hey, I believe today, before we sign off from this intro, this preview episode, that you have a quote to encourage us to rise up and be the men that God has called us to be.
Yes, Marcus Aurelius said these words. He said, "Stop talking talking about what it means to be a man and be one. In other words, stop talking about it and be about it.
Man, that's so good. So I hope that you join us, men, that you join us in rising up and being the man that God has called us to be, starting right now here today. Well, remember to follow and subscribe on all of the social media platforms. We're on YouTube, X, Facebook, and the best way to find out wherever our content is at is to go to our website. That's going to be www.mantalkpodcast.com. Again, that's www.mantalkpodcast.com. And our video content is going to be chiefly hosted on YouTube. And the best way to know when new stuff is posted on YouTube is to like and subscribe. So we can't wait to see you in season 1, episode 1 of Man Talk. So we'll see you back here in the studio then.